Hey guys, this is Seiraph and you're watching Culture Talk.
Seiraph,
Yeah.
what's up, nigga?
What's up? How you doing?
You alright?
Yeah.
Cool. So for those of you that don't know who this guy is,
Yeah.
he is an academic activist, for whatever that means. And
Perhaps.
I'll let him introduce himself so we can get this show on the road. So Seiraph, who are you, my friend?
Like you said, I think the best place to start is I am an academic. I consider myself an academic activist. I'm a poet, although the poetry is really dying out now. It's something that is starting to bore me, and sometimes I rap, and I'm a blogger as well as a YouTuber, and what else? What else is cool about me? And I just recently graduated and trying to keep a job, you know. So basically, that's it. Yeah.
Right. So what keeps you occupied seeing as you graduate now?
I've been trying to generate some content for my channel, as well as generate a lot of educative articles for my blog. I've been reviewing books. The books I've been reading most of the times. In a space of 2020 to now, I've read a number of books, and I've been trying to write reviews for each of those.
Wow.
So that's what's been keeping me occupied aside from work. So pretty much that.
Cool. Bit of intellectual masturbation here and
Yeah. We engage in a lot of intellectual masturbation. Yeah.
And how's the new year treating you? 2022.
2022 is okay, man. I think it's fun. It's disappointing in some ways. I've already made a lot of notable mistakes. I wish I could undo, but we keep living. So 2022 is bad and good.
Fair enough.
So far, so good. Yeah.
So when did you start to challenge the status quo?
I think I started late 2019, just after the first closure, the first COVID-19 closure.
Okay.
So when universities closed, and then we went back home, I was super bored, since you can't do your schooling, your meetings, and all that stuff. So you just find yourself 90% of the time at home. So I had to pick up a hobby and pick up a new interest. I tried with the blogging thing, since I was blogging from that time. I had started blogging in 2018. I tried to generate some content for my channel, but then I got bored out of it. So I decided to challenge myself by learning some ideas that ran counter with my beliefs at the time.
Right.
So two topics that stood out for me was the Big Bang Theory as well as evolutionary biology. And when I just read those, I used to read them from my publications, but then I decided to read them from actually notable people in these fields. So if say for example, if it comes to evolutionary biology, I would read it from, say, a prominent evolutionary biologist who's an opinion leader on the topic. And if it comes to the Big Bang, I would read it from physicists and stuff like that. And then it was impactful because for the first time I came to see that these things make so much sense. And then everything just started crumbling down. It cast a doubt in me. And then from there, it was just, it was down into the rabbit hole. Yeah.
What did you think of the whole COVID conspiracy around that time?
COVID conspiracy.
There was a conspiracy that it was being controlled by, obviously, some untouchables.
Oh, yeah. I think I was skeptical of the idea because I thought this is just genuinely a weird plague that has just broken out because of overly indulging on wrong animals and stuff like that. I didn't really think so much of it, and all those stories that were going around. It's something that I took. I was passive about everything. I was just it's COVID, man. Right. We just have to stay safe and stuff like that. But it's not something I spend time really thinking about or trying to take serious. I think I used to overlook it, perhaps. Yeah.
And why do you think it's important to think outside the box, especially now?
I think it's important to think outside the box because that's where all the good conversations are. All the great conversations are outside the box. People tend to feel uncomfortable when You question widely accepted ideas or ideas they've held to for long periods of time, because change doesn't come easy. And then these ideas are comfortable, and we are all just trying to be organized, both in how we think. So sometimes when you scrap these ideas, you have no grounding. You feel as though you're in some sort of like existential landscape. But it's important to question and think outside the box, because you learn, you dare yourself to try out things you didn't even know. You get faced with different possibilities, both intellectually, emotionally, arguably even spiritually. If you probe this stuff further, you know. So I think it's important to think outside the box, because that's where the great conversations are.
Fair enough. And where did you find the courage to contradict like some of these?
So where I found the courage, I think I found the courage in the people I was watching at the time, and these people are people who have been in the media called or referred to as the 4 atheists of the apocalypse movement.
Yeah.
So this is Sam Harris, Richard Dawkins, Dan Dennett, and Christopher Hitchens. I think I admired how they just argued their case in front of huge numbers of people, and it's almost as if they had a certain intellectual honesty about how they carried themselves that I found really moving. And I thought, if I could just develop the same level of like honesty towards the things I question and how I question and how I acquire knowledge, I thought I would live a more meaningful life. So I'd say the desire to dare to question came from those people I was watching and the people I was reading, because I was thinking, if they could do it, then I possibly can do it too. There was something empowering about just standing out and saying stuff that ran counter with the norm. So yeah, something like that.
So was it more a phase of fire, or was it like a genuine belief?
I think I genuinely believed it at the time. I really, really did. I did. Even I would not even saying at the time. Even down to this day, I think it's still something that I think is a noble thing to live for. To intellectually persuade and question, probe, but doing it honestly and not being scared to say it. Because ideas are just ideas, and like somebody said, ideas are contagious. So whether you disagree with me or not, if I give you an idea and I make a coherently intelligent argument, then you just believe me hopelessly, because you're doing that means you're being an intellectually honest person. Because I've just laid down a good case on the table, why not adopt it? Unless you have a greater case that runs counter to it, then that's the case that both of us should adopt. So I think it's still something that lives on in me, and I think 90% of how I live my life and approach life and approach these conversations is still influenced by that idea.
Would you refer to yourself as a nihilist?
No. I think it's usually, it's like the first thing people think when you tell them you don't share their view on theism.
So
yeah.
Before you expound, let me just explain what a nihilist is. Nihilist is someone who believes there's no meaning to life.
Yeah.
So generally tends to skirt around existentialism. Why am I here? There's no point to this speck of dust.
Yeah.
This endless planet, infinitesimal, other cosmic entities.
Yeah.
Irrelevant. So it's quite a down, depressing.
Yeah, depressing. It's like a sad way to live.
Yeah. So what I'll give you a chance to counter people that think you're a nihilist because you don't share their.
Yeah, I think I'm not really, in as much as I might not think that the universe was put into play, or it's the way it is because there was an intelligent mind behind it. That doesn't then automatically follow that I am a nihilist. I think there's a lot of things that make my life purposeful and meaningful in this short little time period I have to live. And it's not like just because I feel like there's no supernatural, like intelligent force out there, then I'm just gonna live like a really debauched life or I'm just gonna have like morals that are downright pathetic. No, like I think life is pragmatically meaningful. I don't know if I'm making sense, but things that happen in the moment and in the time scale that you're living, I think that's where I draw meaning from. 90% of the time, people who are nihilistic tend to have no substantial grounding for anything they call meaningful. They're just like living. Life is just like, it's existential to say the least. But for me, I think there's relationships with the people I love, there's the books I read, there's the wonders of the universe, there's the mystery of consciousness. There's all these questions to be had while you're still alive, and all these hard conversations to be had. And in those things, you can see a meaning that I would argue is noble and nothing close to nihilistic in nature.
So people do say, if you don't believe in God, so what do you believe in? Because I mean, obviously, first of all, then ask the question: do you believe in God?
The short answer is no.
All right.
The long answer is it depends.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So as I was saying, like playing the game of belief. Obviously, some people find that grounding themselves in God allows them to sort of gravitate themselves into grace, so like they can strive for a higher purpose.
Yeah.
And now, obviously, you don't have a shadow looming over your head. So, what is your guide?
I think for me, the guide basically, at a basic level, is just the pragmatic benefit of that which I'm striving for itself. So say for example, if I'm striving for, say, a more coherent explanation of reality, it's the purpose or the greatness or the grandness lies in the wonder of that pursuit. Right. Like the drive that makes you pursue that goal or feel like you should be in a path where you're out for knowledge acquisition. Like that itself is something where you can see purpose from. You don't always have to. People act as though they constantly go around living life thinking, "Oh, now my life is meaningful because I believe in God." Right. Just the everyday activities of life. Even take away the idea that you constantly have to remind yourself at every point, in every journey, in every activity, I believe in God, so this is meaningful. I believe in God because so this is meaningful. No, I believe in God because so my relationship is meaningful. It's not always like that. People tend to believe these things are meaningful because of the immediate pragmatic benefit of it. Yeah.
So Seiraph, go on then. We were talking about the pursuit of meaning in your life.
Yeah.
As an atheist, not a nihilist.
Yeah. Yes, please. At least, despite its negative connotations, atheist sounds better than nihilist. So, yeah.
Very true.
But in the minds of some people, it's situated the same way. So, right. What difference does it make?
So, you've obviously mentioned how it is dealing with hard-headed people.
Yeah.
What's been the hardest part of being an atheist in a conservative Christian country?
I think to a great degree, I've also been the problem in how I've been like shoving around my atheism.
That's honest.
I think I broke away from religion. When I broke away from religion and the type of religion I used to subscribe to, and I realized just how much I lost. Basically, how much I lost when it comes to like relationships that I had with people I used to really, really be emotionally attached to. I became very vengeful. And because I was vengeful, it took time for me to even learn how to have like a respectful, normal conversation with somebody. I would just be there just like God bashing and poking holes and just rubbishing off people. I think that tendency is still there to a great degree. It's something I'm washing down slowly. But I think I carried a lot of like vengefulness from that breakaway because of mainly because of the friends that I lost. Because when I was leaving, I was slightly so prideful and felt like I'm just the smartest person in the world and everybody's confused. They don't know that they're being lied to. But with time, I got to realize that there's really lots of nuances and caveats to this. It's not as black and white as I had put it out to be. And every single day. It's something that I'm working toward to try to like, instead of mock, but just have a normal conversation. But it's much easier to just mock. But
It's much more fun.
so it's something I'm really toning down. But yeah, I broke away with a lot of like vengeance, and it was difficult. And then because of that, I made it very hard to be liked by people, especially people who are in my immediate circle. So because of that, it's been difficult to talk to people and communicate.
So do you think there needs to be a liberty of thought, or at least more of an acceptance for alternative-minded folk?
Yeah, I think there should be. If we're going to police anybody or anything, we first have to have an intellectual argument to bring to the table.
Right.
You can't just go around saying, we're just going to bar down everybody who has an opposing view.
Mm-hmm.
You have to get them to see why it's not beneficial for them to have that view. If you feel like it's a view that is not noble.
Right.
Yeah, as opposed to just cutting them out or excommunicating them and stuff like that. People need to be talked to. Especially, say for example, if you're a parent and your kid starts developing certain ideas that you don't find pleasing, you just don't tell them to stop. You sit down and have a conversation with them and show them why you think that's the case.
So rather
They'll
you
appreciate
pull
it
on their
more.
string to get to know them.
What?
As in, you untangle the idea.
Yeah, it's more like you're getting inside their heads and trying to see why it even matters to them. Because I think everything and every idea can be reasoned into or reasoned out of. So the best thing is just to talk to people. It's conversations that start peace or end peace.
I think it's interesting to say that, because I do think consensus comes from conversation, which
Yeah.
catalyzes change.
Yeah.
So even when we have councils or parliament, all these things, those conversations are like for policies, for changes to impact people's lives.
Yeah, exactly.
But then we underestimate the power of interpersonal relationships.
Yeah,
So even when you talk about that dynamic of parent and kid,
yeah,
obviously here, we've got the do as you're told and the superior,
Yeah.
shut up, you don't know anything,
yeah.
type mentality here.
And conversations, admitting this fact is important. Conversations are hard.
Yeah,
It's hard to disagree about ideas that you hold to the core, you know?
yeah.
Yeah. Even when we're talking about, say, conflicting religious beliefs, it takes a lot to just tell somebody something as simple as, no, I think Noah's Ark is not scientifically accurate. That's like a big blow, and it's not going to be an easy conversation. But at least you should be in a place where you can have it. Yeah, it's if you can start the conversation, that's what counts. Like, just have the conversation. Don't fight or cut each other off. Talk to each other.
So interesting. So rather than talking at someone, talk to them.
Yeah.
Because I think also the difference between an argument and disagreement. The argument is a lot more disrespect than
Yeah.
attached to it.
Yeah, and with arguments there's like a lot of like ad hominem to. It's like there's mockery. There's like just poking holes at each other. But with a conversation, you can genuinely show somebody like you're missing very important points here, or your argument or your case is not really logical, and there are all these loopholes. But with arguments, you can't go so far. I think conversations is what can take you far.
Okay.
Yeah.
And speaking conversations, how do you find the parental-child dynamic here being African? Because obviously, as much as you're open-minded, you are still Zambian.
Yeah, I think there's the way parenting gets done leaves much to be desired. Yeah, it does. Like a lot of people growing up just needs to be talked to, especially both boys and girls. But I think parenting is better when you can talk to your child, because if you can talk to them, they'll be more open to come to you and open up about very serious things.
Yeah.
But if you can't, they'll be guarded. They won't look at you as somebody they can confide in. They'll look at you as an opponent, you know? Yeah. And if you get to that place where they're seeing you like that, they can't tell you anything. They'll be fighting wars inside them instead of opening up. Because especially boys, when they reach a certain stage, they need lots of talking to.
Right.
They have all these ideas going through their heads, and we're living in an age of information, you know? They come across various stuff online, and all that just gets drained down their head, and they
talking about how it's important for boys to be talked to, at least to be heard. So would you like to expand a bit more on that? Why do you think it's important?
So why I think it's important is, I think for boys when growing up, they go through a lot of things and they have a lot of questions. Some of these questions border on, say, sex, education, just their own probings, the things they're exposed to. And then if there's nobody to talk to, or if there's nobody to run these questions through, you find they get boiled up inside, or they start learning all these things from all the wrong places. And then if they start learning them from all the wrong places, they develop into characters who we would say aren't really praiseworthy. So I think for parenting, there's a lot of room for African parents to open up and show these boys that it's okay to talk to them. A lot of people want to be talked to, and there's just a certain safe space and soft spot that fathers have in the hearts of boys, where it's more credible if your dad is telling you these things, especially if your dad is able to show you their vulnerable part, or show you I have gone through the same thing. There was a time I was actually battling the same questions. It's actually even better. And there are those people who go my kids are drifting because of ABCD. If you actually show them, there was a point where I too had the same questions about pretty much the same things. They'll be like, oh man, this is not unusual. It's not something that is peculiar. You went through it too, so how did you do it? Then if you show them how they did it, it will be easier for them to emulate that and then grow out of it. But if everything just gets buried inside and then they have to fight their own wars, some wars are too hard to fight, especially when you're just young, figuring out life. There's all this stuff, there's girls, there's alcohol, there's the internet, there's everything, and then you just have to figure it on your own. It's not easy. It's like losing your adolescent years by forcing you. It's almost as if you forced adulthood on yourself. So I think boys need to be talked to more. Yeah.
And is there any word of encouragement or any advice you have to those inquisitive thinkers who are against the grain, whether it be their family, their friends, and they're trying to substantiate their thoughts?
Yeah, I think what I can say is before you become loud about, say, the questions that you have, or the things that you're probing, it's good to do some research. Now we're living in an age of YouTube, so you can simply just punch in any question you have, but don't stop yourself from asking questions. I think the mere fact that you've noticed something is wrong is a good place to start. If you can know that something's really not adding up, there are people having these conversations out there, and sometimes some people just don't know. There's other people who are heavily invested in answering the same questions that are bothering you. So get into a space where you love research, you love to read. At the end of the day, those questions that are burning inside, the only way you're going to find the answers is if you're ready to just to go an extra mile to do some research, figure things out. And it's interesting when you're uncovering truths that you didn't know about, and they're sinking in so deep to a point where you can be able to feel it. Because when I was just in that phase where I was figuring out things and coming to understand, say, some vital points in mainstream science, it felt as if you're uncovering a truth that everybody doesn't know about. So the natural impulse is, let me go talk about it. But sometimes it's easy to, it's more prudent to not rush to talk about it, but build on it to a point where if you're going to talk about it, you talk about it honestly, and it will be something that is intellectually coherent. So you shouldn't embarrass yourself and shouldn't come across as somebody who's undecided about certain things.
So take your time.
Take your time.
Right.
But read, and read as much as you can, and talk with your friends. Yeah. Tell them what you're reading and stuff like that. You find that your friend is reading the same thing, but he just thought you could look down on him if he told you, or if you told him that he's reading pretty much the same stuff. Right. There's a lot of policing that goes around, especially in religious circles. You're reading that? Really? Dude! Yeah.
That judgment and
Yeah.
Discrimination is crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, any shoutouts?
Shoutouts. Who can I shout out to? I would like to shout out to. Okay, no, I'm just if I did this shout out, I'm gonna look like a softball, but I'd rather not. So perhaps I can say, like in conclusion, consciousness is something. It's like a new fascination now, like the mystery of consciousness. Just how we have inner subjective experience, like what it is like to be you, what it is like to see color, what it is like to see this shade of red, and perhaps this shade of maroon, what it's like, you know, your subjective qualitative experience from the mind. I think that's really mysterious, peculiar, and interesting. And I would call people to come on board, like read around consciousness. Like, I think if you can understand consciousness, you can understand your place in the world, in the universe, in the cosmos, and the place you can feel. Because it doesn't even have to be seen along the lines of no religious, unreligious. I think science and the mystery of consciousness is for everybody. Where science takes you depends on what frame of mind you're in. Some people, when they develop a deep appreciation for science, they turn to atheism. Some, it goes to just substantiate their own theism. So it cuts both ways, but at least start from a place where you can appreciate science. So, and that's what I try to do, even with my little blog and channel. I just try to propagate a love for science in Zambians. Yeah, like if we could just get people to love and see these questions, like it's weird that we're here. It's weird that we even exist. It's weird that we're talking like this. It's weird that you are able to experience the world around you. There's something really peculiar here, and people just don't see it. And that's where science comes in, and philosophy.
Well, thank you for that. Appreciate you having me. Oh, I was going to say having me, but appreciate you having this conversation.
Yeah.
All right, then. We'll sign out.
So the last thing I want to say is thanks for having me on your podcast. It's been a long time coming. I don't know how many times we tried, and this thing just didn't work. We had power cuts. There was a time the plug just like messed itself up, and I was like, how the heck could this happen? But we finally done it, man, and it's something I'm grateful about. I think this conversation needs to be had, and for somebody like you who has a soft spot and an appreciation for the transcendent, and still being able to talk to guys like us is something that should be applauded, man. Because there's a lot of like, what you call this, like square in the circle with people that have a different view. So yeah, it goes a long way to be able to talk to somebody. So I'm happy that it has finally happened. We're able to talk, and you guys should check out my channel. I also try to have some interesting conversations with people. We don't have really like fully substantial educative videos, but it's merely to raise awareness. Like, so you find us talk about, say, consciousness, the universe, inflation, the Big Bang, and stuff like that. And when I say inflation, it's not inflation like money-wise, it's cosmic inflation, like the universe is expanding. All those stuff, like we're talking about them in a way that can show somebody, oh damn, there's a conversation that needs to be had here. So it's consciousness raising and awareness. So you should check out my channel and my content. And if you enjoy it, do subscribe. It's hard to grow for people who are doing this thing. Yeah. Yeah.
So remember, sharing is caring.
Yeah.